So tonight, this is what we're hopefully going to have a little chat and a cover with. So we're going to talk about the requirements that you're going to need to have to start a childminding business. Something that's very important is the earning potential, because we're not going in this as a hobby. We obviously need to make this a viable business. And we're going to talk about the difference between Ofsted and a childminding agency, which we appreciate are very much in the press at the moment, and the difference in those two things. So first of all, what will you need to do if you want to start your childminding business? So we've just mentioned there, you do legally need to be registered with either Ofsted or a childminding agency. An example of one of those is Koru Kids. Childminding agencies were basically brought in by the Department of Education in 2014. And a quick way to explain what they are is they're a one-stop shop for childminders. So they offer help in getting you registered and in also all of your training. So you need to choose either one of those. It's worth noting childminding agencies are inspected by Ofsted as well. You need to complete training in safeguarding and paediatric first aid. The paediatric first aid, normally you will have to do a day physically present somewhere at least. Mine was over 2 days. Your safeguarding you probably will be able to complete online. You will need to, if you choose to care for young children, so particularly those under the age of 5, you will need to show both the agency and an Ofsted inspector that you have a profound understanding of the early years foundation stage. When I had my inspection, I would say half of it was sort of being challenged and asked questions on what I knew about the EYFS, and the other half was more safeguarding. But you will need to know that, because you will be supporting and nurturing the children to get those next steps in their development. And if you are offering food, particularly warm food, you will also need to have a food hygiene certificate. And probably get in contact with your local authority. Some authorities will physically come out to you to inspect you, mine did, but some authorities will simply do it over the phone with a chat with you. Nothing to worry about, because I know sometimes people get anxious about things like that, like, oh gosh, someone's going to look in my fridge. But actually they are there to support you and to guide you. You will need to complete a health declaration form that can only be completed by your doctor's surgery. So you need to contact your doctor and they will complete one of those and forward it on to Ofsted. And that's just to check that you are fit and well enough to care and look after children. You will most definitely need an enhanced DBS check. And actually everybody in your property who lives there who is over the age of 16 will need an enhanced DBS check. You need to be able to work from home. This is what we're doing. We're childminding, we're caring for children within our own 4 walls. So we need to make sure that our home is suitable to do that. You do have to be able to have a good level of written and spoken English, because obviously we are educating and working with children to develop their own language skills. So it doesn't mean English has to be your first language at all. I know lots of different childminders from lots of different backgrounds, but you do have to have a good standard of English. And also, no one can smoke on your childminding premises, including your garden, because obviously we want to promote a safe working environment. So is your home suitable? Another question we get asked lots. People think you need a mansion to become a childminder. You do not. Okay, so the guidance is that you have clear space for children to play, and each child should be allocated 2 meters by 2 meters. It's between 2 and 3.5 meters squared. So that's what you're trying to work out if you can fit per child in your setting. Lots of people have said, try to imagine a double bed in your house. How many double beds could you put in the flooring space that you are going to be looking after children in? And that will help you sort of decide how many children you can care for under the regulations within your home. You will also need to factor in, obviously, room to store certain equipment. It says toys, books, and space for children to sleep here. Some childminders who are particularly looking after babies do like to have a separate space, which is a quiet space where they can put children to sleep. Some also like to have specific areas for obviously nappy changing and things like that. So typical things that you know you're going to have to do on a daily basis with small children. Have you got room for that? Again, we've mentioned a non-smoking household and garden. And permission of the landlord if you are renting. It is important to note here that childminding is a little bit unique in that you are still considered a domestic property if you are working from your home as a childminder. So you don't have to pay business taxes or things like that. And in terms of your landlord's insurance, it is important to let them know that unlike other businesses which are run from properties, they have to be classed as then business properties. We are still domestic premises, so it's a little bit different for childminders than other businesses in your household. You don't have to have a huge garden. You don't have to have a garden at all, because if you have a green space or a park nearby or somewhere where you can regularly take the children for outdoor learning and walks and outside to explore, it's perfectly acceptable. The Ofsted inspector will be fine with that. And pets are fine as well. Lots of people think if they've got dogs and cats, the Ofsted won't approve, when actually, when I had my inspection, I've got 2 guinea pigs and a cat, and they quite liked it because we can incorporate how to care and look after the animals with the children. And as long as they're safe with the children, and for example, I have the guinea pigs in the kitchen, but they're away from any cooking areas, they were all absolutely fine with that. So again, pets are not a barrier towards this profession. So costs of running a childminding business. So it's mentioned some of those things that you're going to need to have to register. And on top of that, obviously equipment. So if you are already a mum, you might have some of these things about in your household. And if they're in good working condition, it's perfectly fine, you can use them. But if you don't, you might have to add things like pushchairs and travel cots, indoor, outdoor resources and toys, safety equipment. If you have your own children, are you going to use their toys, or are you going to invest in some other toys? I actually took my children on car boots when I set up because I didn't want to exclusively use their toys. Obviously, they're theirs. I didn't want to think I was pressuring them into sharing them. So we went and bought some toys that were specific for the childminding children. And that worked really well. But of course, it was an additional cost. You're going to have things like your DBS check. So at the moment, they are £44 per person for an enhanced check. Your course costs will vary depending on your local authority and the course you choose. My last paediatric first aid course was £70, but they do vary in price. And then, of course, you've got your safeguarding and all your other courses that you'll need to do. If you need to do a childminding course to make sure that you are proliferant in the early years foundation stage, then you have to cover all of those costs yourself. In terms of the things we mentioned, the health declaration form, which you have to get from your doctors, they're normally around £60 to £80. Mine was £60. There is a legal cap on that, 120. So your doctor's surgery most definitely will not be able to charge you any more than that. So that's worth knowing. And in terms of other costs, something that isn't mentioned is you do need to be a member of ICO, which is the Information Commissioner's Office. The only reason you need to be a member of those is because you are storing details of your family, so important phone numbers for emergency contacts, etc., etc. And that is currently only £40 a year to register with those, but it's quite important so you can keep those details safe. Again, your food hygiene, if you're offering food, you'll need to do that, which prices may vary. And your insurance. We do know, because we've recently done an interview with Morton Michelle, that they charge just over £70 per year for public liability insurance. So they're sort of costs that you're going to have to think about as you go along. And of course, house changes. So your house might be perfect for it. You might not need to change a lot, but in some settings and some houses, people like to change different rooms to create different purposes for where you're going to childmind in. I wouldn't spend thousands on your house, and I've seen some people have some great ideas with how they can use it. Some people are really lucky as well, and you might have a spare room, a spare lounge, which you can use exclusively for childminding. I don't, so don't use that as to be put off as well. So I just set up some craft and games in my lounge area. We eat in my kitchen area. It does mean obviously Monday to Friday that games and things are set up in the house, but as a family we're quite happy with that. So again, you don't need to go overboard and change your home environment too much. And regular ongoing costs are your professional development courses, and when Ofsted or agencies will want to see that you are continually accessing different courses to bring on your development and to make sure that you are always learning as a childminder. Food and drink, of course, if you are giving those to the children, outings and clubs. You'll often find lots of local childminders do get together. I've just seen one today in a soft play area. So they've been in contact with the soft play area, and they're going to let them take 5 children for £12. But of course, it's still a cost to you, even though it's a great price. Always keep in mind, you will obviously have tax at the end of the year and your national insurance. Most people will probably be in the basic 20% rate as a childminder. So if you're calculating 20% of what you've earned, that's probably a good starting point for putting money aside for your tax. Wear and tear of replacement items, because at the end of the day, we are looking after children. We all know what they're like, so there will be a little bit of wear and tear. Stationery and office supplies, craft activities. I'm always buying new craft activities, and then miscellaneous bits and bobs. You'll find the children themselves might even ask you if they're interested in a particular subject. And it's great to roll with that you'll be able to buy those resources. Always keep your receipts, because you'll be able to use them as an outgoing on your tax. So earning potential. Now, Renata has had a little play on this, because Koru Kids have a great calculator which does help you in calculating what sort of potential earnings you can get from childminding. Before she goes on that, it does depend on if you have children of your own age, because I often get asked, do my own children class in the ratios? And yes, they do. So if you have your own children at the same time as childminding children, your child is taking a ratio place. Obviously, it will depend on how many days and hours you want to work. But the great thing about this is it's your business, so you decide your area and how you sell your services. So I'll let Renata just go over the Koru Kids calculator with you.
So it's a little funky calculator that you might just as well start, you know, to get an idea what your costing can be. Obviously, there are other things you need to consider, but it's a funky thing. So at the end of this webinar, you're going to receive the presentation, so you can find the link there. So I put here 4 days a week because I don't want to work 5 days. I'm going to work full days, and I've got one child who is under 5, and I don't want to have any assistant working with me, so therefore I need to have only a certain amount of children. So if you have assistant, you can have more children. Here they're asking, how should we estimate the space available to care for the children? You said, Lorna, about beds, and they talk about duvets, which is quite funny. So I'm very lucky. I've got 4 double duvets, and those are optional. If you're renting, you can have those things. I'm just going to leave it, you know, empty. And but yeah, you can. I'll put maybe 150. I think that's what our local tax is, and electricity, heating, I think is about 250, and see my potential earnings. So I could earn 27,000 per year, taking care of 2 children, not counting my own. Your total pay will be £14 per hour, charging £8 per hour for each child. So saving 13,000 on childcare for your own child, because obviously that's a huge consideration when you becoming childminder, and you've got other. So it's just a little play for you to have a look. What are the potential? Obviously, you should spend, if you're taking it very seriously, you should spend a bit more time kind of looking into the expenses and what is your potential earning. Okay, so I'm going to pass it on to you, Lorna.
No worries, I'll share my screen again. So ratios, a really important ratio just to remember, if you only remember one, is you are only allowed a maximum of 6 children under the age of 8. Now, of those children, a maximum of 3 may be young children. And young children are classed as, basically it's 5 and under, so they are classed as a young child until the 1st of September following their 5th birthday. A lot of childminders in my area, if they don't look after young children, for example, they will only start looking after children from year 1 in school. Reception and early years, as it's called, they still class as young children until the 1st of September following their 5th birthday. And you are only allowed 1 child under the age of 1. Now, as with most things, there are always exceptions to those ratios. We won't read this all out to you because you will get a copy of the PowerPoint. But at times there will be things like unforeseen emergencies. I had a friend who had already had 2 3-year-olds on her books, and some twins wanted to come. So she contacted Ofsted, and actually that was seen as an exception to the rule because they were twins and it was allowed. But the one rule that is never sort of negotiated is that the total number of children under the age of 8 being cared for must not exceed 6. So that's the main one you must remember. And the childminder must be able to demonstrate to parents or carers and Ofsted inspectors, or of course their agency, that the individual needs of all the children are always being met. And that's really important because actually above the age of 8, there is currently no ratio. But if, for example, you had just 6 children under the age of 8, and then you started looking after some children who go to school as wraparound care, and you took on way too many and it sort of impeded your environment and the care of those younger children, then that would be a major issue. So when you're taking on children over the age of 8, you really need to consider that you can demonstrate to Ofsted or your agency that you are meeting the needs of all the children that you are caring for. So something that's in the news at the moment is obviously following the recent budget, is there going to be a new pilot scheme aimed at boosting the number of childminders in the UK, because there has been a decline. Ofsted have noted an 8% decline in the last year, which actually equates to 5,400 childminders which have left. So obviously this is an issue that urgently needs addressing. Individuals who begin working as childminders will be eligible to receive an incentive payment of £600. And if they sign up through an agency, the amount will increase to £1,200. Just to give you a quick look at what some of, obviously, the agencies and Ofsted's prices are. So again, we won't run up through all this. You'll be able to see some are obviously based more in certain areas in the UK as well, such as home childcare. Some will take a percentage of your earnings, and some will take a fee per month from you. So for example, Koru kids do take 10%, where Rutland will take £35 a month. So these are all things for you when you're starting your business to decide which you feel would be best for you. Obviously Ofsted, if you are registering on the early years register and the childcare register combined, it is a £35 annual fee. If you only register on the childcare register, which is to care for older children only, that's actually more expensive. It's 103. So it's worth probably registering on both because it's a cheaper option. But they're worth looking through because I'm actually with Ofsted, so it's quite interesting for me to have a look at what some of the agencies can offer.
And with my colleague Ada, we created a much more comprehensive guide for you, which we're going to be sending to you. So it will explain what kind of training, how they're helping with the marketing, what kind of other supports they do, because you can look at this and think, oh, this is very expensive, but maybe in overall, if you are available with that support, create a childminding business where you employ assistant and they help you with that, maybe that's something to consider. So you really need to look into what they offer and what it's going to work for you, because you know, if you haven't got much experience in running a business, it can be quite daunting at the beginning. So having someone who can support you, give you the hand to guide you through the business can be very, very helpful.
And the agencies do inspect you more frequently, which at first sounds a scary thought, but actually they're there to support and guide you. So I know, for example, that Rutland, they inspected those that were registered with them annually, so every single year, where with Ofsted, it's obviously nowhere near as frequent as that, which some might find a positive, some might not. Again, if you're somebody who needs support and guidance and you haven't started a business before, then maybe an agency is a better fit.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if they're charging a percentage of your earning, their probably interest is for you to do very well.
Yeah.
So there is an incentive for them as well for you to make more money, because it means it translates into their more earning. But again, it's individual, you know, it doesn't mean we're not promoting any of those agencies. We are not connected to them. So it's really, really up to you. And as I said, we're going to send you the more comprehensive guide so you can have a look and compare which agency or whether Ofsted is the right choice for you.
Yeah, you can also, with obviously if you register with Ofsted, you can use the Ofsted logo. You can still, when you're registered with an agency, agencies are only classed as Ofsted inspected, effective or ineffective, but you can use that logo because a lot of people see Ofsted as a recognised entity. A lot of parents will say, because I can obviously advertise I'm Ofsted registered, parents like that. There is a way around that being an agency as well, because agencies are inspected by Ofsted, so it's all sort of linked anyway.
Okay, so yeah, if that 1,200 for the agency, when you register with agency, might seem much more kind of interesting for you at the beginning, because it's a great boost into your business, but overall, you know, you're getting 600 from Ofsted, which is really strange that they did that way, but you know, we understand that they want to support those childcare agencies to take away the pressure on Ofsted. But overall, if you look at these numbers, how much you're going to pay to the agency, maybe this 600 might be a better option for you. But again, it's your choice. We're just helping you to kind of see through, you know, kind of being able to compare the services they offer and what the cost of registering with them. So I think this is the last slide, Lorna, right?
Indeed. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So if you've got any questions, you can pop in a chat or Q&A, or you can raise your hand and we can